Hey everybody, Parnell Woodard again with a new episode of Frantech. Before we came on air, Hugo was kind enough to share some things with me that I were very humbling. So I can't say enough about this man. I think he's one of the kindest guys that I've had the privilege to meet throughout my way too many years working in the world. So this morning we have Hugo Moreno with us from Roller. A little bit about Roller. Roller is a comprehensive cloud-based venue management platform, really designed to assist attractions, entertainment, leisure businesses in enhancing their operations and delivering exceptional guest experiences. The platform offers a suite of integrated tools, including online ticketing, point of sale, CRM, memberships, waivers, gift cards, that really enables venues to streamline processes, increase revenue, and most importantly, improve customer sat. Hugo is a strategic customer success manager at Roller. And Hugo and I met a number of years ago at MindBody during a former life. But I'll stop there. Hugo, you want to give everybody, watchers, listeners, a little background on yourself?
Parnell, what a great introduction. Thank you. And I have to thank you for the invite. And yes, so my name is Hugo Moreno, and I've been working now close to 10 years in the SaaS world as a customer success manager, working with brands that are really trying to impact local communities either in a holistic way and now shifting over to family entertainment centers. The beauty about this market is there's a lot of open space to really change the actual overall operation and feel for the consumer, leveraging technology as we continue to advance with AI.
Yeah. In Roller's space, Hugo, how the industry continues to evolve very quickly, right? That the attractions space, and how do they balance the integration of cutting edge technology with that need to maintain a very authentic and human centered guest experience? I had a gentleman on. Why am I drawing a blank? From Rick Mayo from Alloy. And he talked about technology, but not losing the personal side of it. So how does Roller do that in maintaining that authentic kind of human-centered guest experience?
The first thing is to do on-site research. I think what's critical in this area is to really see from the owner operator's perspective how that engagement from consumers is really tailored for strategic touch points. So yes, we obviously want to have some online booking so people are more conveniently booking their experience. But when it's now come to the experience at the brick and mortar location, you need to really focus on a good reception, tailored, efficient walk-in, and an overall just the right tone. And what do I mean by tone? When someone walks into your venue, right? If you start hitting them with obstacles of, "Hey, welcome. Did you finish your waiver? Are you ready to purchase a pass? By the way, what class or what service or venue were you trying to attend?" These are all questions that I would say puts a consumer in sort of like a predicament because they're not like, "Oh, wait a minute, I got a second thought" or whatnot.
Yeah.
Where as a shift to that in a more strategic and kind approach is, "Welcome. May I check you in?" Perfect. Now you're checking them in. They bring in either their booking, their confirmation order, they present an email that has a barcode, if we're talking about Roller, with their waiver. They scan it, it brings up their booking. Parnell, welcome. Let's go ahead and get you situated for your 6 p.m. And I notice you have 4 guests. Are they ready? Right? This entire experience has now shifted from proactive into a service to kind of almost as questioning and trying to identify why are you even in my venue, right? And so these strategic changes really impact the overall experience. So not only now that they have a less obstacles to ingress, they have a fantastic time with the experience that you're selling, and on the way out, you can then follow up with, "Hey, on the way, a few days, hours, or minutes, depending on your targets. You're going to get a feedback. We'd love to hear back from you and look forward to seeing you again." Kind gesture on the way out creates an overall experience that has now shifted that consumer to say, "Wow, I felt like I belong here. I felt very personal attention, and I felt like they were prepared."
Yeah, yeah. And you know me because of our background with data and everything that we did in a former life. But as data analytics becomes more important in that decision making process, how does Roller's platform really empower venue operators to make more informed choices that drive both growth and guest satisfaction?
GTM. Google Analytics, right? Honestly, Parnell, I have to say, a lot of businesses that I hear will always kind of be very proud of the websites that they build out and some of the marketing that they do. But that's the start of the journey, right? And then I ask, okay, are you tracking that client journey? And more importantly, are we hyper focusing on the areas where they're abandoning your cart, your checkout, or just clicking through the website? So with Roller, we have a native integration to GTM and Google Analytics. And so this gives you more visualization to understand your client journey and make those micro adjustments in reality. And I always tell these to clients, look at the platforms you already use to purchase yourself at home as a consumer, your Amazons, your Costco apps. How many clicks does it take for you to buy something impulsively? Are you
Yeah.
going to 15 clicks and asking for waiver and maybe your mother's maiden name for security reasons? No. And you
Yeah.
probably wouldn't complete a transaction if it was. And so what we've really focused in Roller is creating an efficiency on that online checkout so that it's trackable and that it's easily used for a parent who's holding a child and managing life.
Yeah. So, in your role as that customer success manager, are there common challenges that you see venue operators have when they're trying to implement a new technology, and how do you help them overcome that?
Education, that's a great question, Parnell. I think this particular vertical and any vertical that really is focused with client engagement, there is still that question of what is too much and what is too little. And what do I mean? It's like, where do we throw in optimization and where do we focus on personnel? And so I think what we do with Roller really is highlight those points because a lot of our teammates are former owner operators. And so we have that internal knowledge to actually tailor these processes and give some best business practices on like, hey, here's how we think you should manage this intake. Here's how we think we should manage the waivers. Here's how we think you should manage discount codes. Again, what are we driving with this? Client engagement overall.
Yeah. And do because you're exposed to that with so many different organizations, do you think that those best practices and the learnings that you have when you have a new client come on board and they're trying to implement that new technology, do they really absorb that? Do they really kind of suck that up and help them, get that technology up and running faster?
It's I think we use the trust but verify system. So we onboard, we provide robust trainings, but then we follow up. Right, it's not good enough to lead someone to the good source of water. Right, you
Yeah.
then have to follow up and make sure that they're continuing to visit that spot. And so I think that's what's really key about our team. We create really personal experiences with all of our clients, and then we continue some sort of accountability trend where we just follow up and say, hey, now that you've been actually executing these practices, provide some feedback. And a lot of times, Parnell, I want to say this is a living experience, right? So we iterate as consumer behavior changes, as different verticals come into play. We'll make slight adjustments so that we always keep what's important at top of the North Star of the guidance for
Yeah.
operations, the client's experience.
Yeah. Um, I know you've got a combination of clients. Some are franchisors, some are mom and pops, some are corporate owned. Um, in the franchise space, where do you see franchisors needing to improve some of the utilization of technology that they have? Do you see any of that when you talk with them?
You know, One of the things that I've seen, and this is even from my previous experience with businesses, is a lot of the businesses grew into data later on in their business journey. So what do I mean? Um, when someone's starting off a business, obviously, naturally, sometimes they're not really thinking at the 4th, 5th, 10-year mark and saying, how is this data going to look? And more
Yeah.
importantly, how is it going to be actionable when I
Yeah.
start digging into my KPIs or OKRs that I've set for my franchisors or even my corporate team?
Sure.
So I think a lot of times what happens is the more stance happens. We need more pricing options. We need more variables. We're not hitting our ideal client base, so we need more options on top of more options. In reality, I would challenge business owners and say, could we really shift that mindset? And instead of more options on the purchasing front, could we do a better job of marketing and education? Could it possibly be that your consumers are just not necessarily knowing what needs to be purchased and instead they're being lost in the options that you've brought? I tell people, don't be the cheesecake factory. of the options menu, right?
Because that is a menu, man.
That
That is
is
a
a
menu.
menu, right? It's like a book. I tell people, try to be the in and out of the business, and why try to offer two or three scalable options that work in different geo areas. Um, think about and work with other teams. There's now consultants that you can use to scale and look at what your real intentions are for a 3, 5, even 10-year plan. And on that basis, strategize your onboarding and implementation of all your products and class names and services into a very clean and simple format that can be copied and pasted over time, so that when you're at that mark of growth or deciding to look for investors, you can pull out these what your margins are,
Yeah.
P&Ls reports, year over year growth, in a very simple and digestible manner. That's great for growth. And then for micro adjustments and education for your franchisees, nurturing, right? If you notice that churns down and you notice that, there's a lot of, abandonment cart on the website, adjust your wording. Let's say that maybe your conversion's great, retention's is not best. Hyper focus on the client experience through some SAT scores.
Yeah. Yeah.
Find out, simple consumer surveys. Find out what's hurting and adjust. But again, I really do believe that when you have so much data, you spend more time cleaning it than acting on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Do you see in your role the places that roller is connect that the other systems that roller is connecting to, or that the corporate entity wants to connect it to, and what are some of those systems? Right? Are they, we talked about customer sat, like MPS systems.
mhm.
Are there, are there other systems, learning management systems, things of that nature, that typically the either the franchisor or the corporate team wants to connect with roller as they go forward?
Oh, 100%. A lot of the businesses already have an internal system set up for education. So you buy into the franchise, and you get access to sort of like an intranet system. And in the intranet system, they have an entire support built out that syncs up to whatever provider they're going to be using, is it Salesforce, or whatnot. And then in that, they provide really tailored training videos and documentation. And the beauty about being a partnership is we can custom tailor those to our software as well. And so, I think what's critical overall with those avenues, is A, to keep them updated, and B, to have some sort of like tracker to make sure that your owners are actually leveraging. That's the other key thing. You can build the education for now, and that's great. But then either having a follow up with them, and asking, or when a new update is published, recommending it to go read. So what we've noticed is, whenever something is updated or changed in that knowledge base for the franchise group, even a simple drip campaign. Hey, new
Yeah.
update. Here's a new
Yeah.
update. A simple glance. Read more. Click here. Always link. Convenience, convenience, convenience.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Um,
tracking of that accountability is so critical, because what you run into are those owners who don't do that, and then they're asking questions, drives up your customer support costs because they didn't do that work up front. Even in my coaching work, I track my clients' engagement level, because if people aren't going to be engaged and are not going to spend the time and the effort to go learn, then as a coach, why would they expect me to do the same, right? So flip the table. If you're an owner or a franchisor, I want to know that my franchisees are doing their homework and being engaged. Not to mention, more engaged is generally more successful, right? At the end of the day, you gotta, I did a podcast yesterday with somebody, and we talked about one I had done a number of months ago, and her husband was a former Navy SEAL, and when they got into business for themselves, he said, burn the ships. And it was, you commit and you go. There is no plan B, right? You commit and you go. Let's talk about, the topic du jour, right? The topic
yes,
of the decade, AI.
yeah,
First, what is Roller doing in the AI space? That you can share. I don't want you to divulge anything you can't.
yeah, of
But
course.
what is Roller doing in the AI space?
I think we're leveraging it internally. There's going to be some updates that will be published recently, that I can't currently share, but we are really looking at that in a really strong way. What I can say about our specific industry is what I do believe, especially for the Family Entertainment Center, is overall it needs to be an operational efficiency that it's focused on, right? Like this is very much a personable industry that still relies on your front staff to have a great interaction with those clients as they come in through the front door. So I truly believe that AI, at least for our industry, is going to really focus on data analysis, operational optimization, and anything that we can reduce to admin costs for owner operators.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, you know, do you see any challenges um, with helping either franchisees adopt AI, or um, have you run into any challenges where AI has created challenges or problems either within your client's network or within, inside of Roller?
That's a great question. I would have to say, we're not at that stage where AI is prevalent enough to have a magnitude of an impact where we're like, step
Okay,
back.
sure.
I do believe though, Parnell, it is coming. What's critical is how we're going to manage that between um, world-class customer service and again, automation. Because in reality, I think that's what it boils down to. And so, as industries and consumers start shifting from quick to service or experience, I think we're going to see a pivot in that from both users and operators, right? What do I mean by that? I do believe it is going to get to some point where a personable delivery that that the end user can interpret, even to a certain sense, is not true. That it's coming from a real human. Um, I think is be critical. I say this as a joke, but we're going to start seeing AI skip a little bit on grammar and probably misspell in the future to give that sense of the human person behind the scene.
There's a prompt for you. When you're writing this for me, ChatGPT, make sure you include a couple of typos to make it look more legit.
I am telling you, consumers are going to be trained, or we're going to get consumer base with copy and paste that into AI, a decipher and see if this was made by a AI entity. So
Yeah.
yes, believe me, I want to trademark that, but there's going to be a plugin for grammar and misspelling.
Yeah. It's funny. There's in any organization, particularly franchise organizations, you have people who are kind of bleeding edge franchisees, and you've got franchisees who are a little bit more resistant to change, right? And when you're thinking about platforms and systems, you've got to focus on the lowest common denominator, folks who are not real tech savvy, particularly in using that platform. Um, but what I see is some of those bleeding edge franchisees are using AI to try and enhance customer experience, analysis, onboarding, any number of different things, but they're doing it in the microcosm of their own location, and they might be creating different experiences that are not necessarily aligned with the brand. So one of those challenges that I see with the AI adoption is trying to keep it in within some guardrails inside of an organization. So do your clients have standardized, I'll call them AI adoption protocols? Have you seen anything to that effect, at least with some of your clients?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why, especially for the Family Entertainment Center, one of the things that I've seen is a lot of the owner operators, even at big, are still family-owned businesses. And so from family-owned businesses, historically, what I've seen is, again, personable corporate point of contacts. Individual, they love to see personnel, the numbers and team. I think as we continue to see the power of AI into delivering BI analysis, maybe support ticket efficiency, first to
Yeah.
respond, right? Even chat functionality for support for franchise owners. uh, like if a franchisee, uh, think about it, instead of having a call center, um, they could just have an AI who is that call center for their entire franchise group. These are the things that I believe in the future are going to come and play for some organizations. Of where do we shift? Do we want to have that personable group of call centers, who may know the back end of the business and are beyond support, able to give maybe some strategic like tips and tricks? Or do we want, again, the AI to really focus? Because what I would argue is it's going to deliver a great, quick, rapid response for support, but the person, or to dictate if there's any issues or flag this franchisor at risk. I'm not sure it's there yet. I do
Yeah.
think some, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that more and more where that call center or that support functionality, whether it's through the application or through an actual inbound phone
Mhm.
call, more and more of it is being supported with AI. And I think some people are doing it really, really well. I've seen figures that 65-ish% of your initial inbound requests are now able to be answered with AI, right? Where second level, you get to an individual as well. Now, that's huge because that has human implications in terms of staffing, but it also has it's positive implications in terms of the end user getting the answer to their question more quickly and more accurately and far less frustratingly, right,
Yes.
than they've been able to do in the past. And I think the strength of that lies in the knowledge base that AI is tapping into. So more
Yeah.
and more you can really tell when you engage with an AI platform, and people are very accepting of it as long as you acknowledge it. The strength of that has to be in the knowledge base. If the knowledge base is weak, then it becomes a frustrating experience. So that AI knowledge base becomes increasingly important. So
Agreed, Parnell. And one of the things that I will add to that is a tailored knowledge. It's like if you're working with any provider and you are the owner of a franchise group, and whoever's bringing out the knowledge base is probably creating it very generalized. And so I think you, as a franchisor, you have an obligation to create a support documentation center that only follows your standard operating procedures,
agreed. Yeah.
right? I think that's a lot of times where vendors and even owner operators get lost in what support looks like from the franchisor. Yes, you have a software partner and they're going to deliver support, but at the end of the day, the service that you're trying to deliver is in your control. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
being said, please, I would always ask, just tailor your client journey. Take a step back, or you yourself book the client journey. Provide feedback to yourself, document that, and then associate that to what FAQs or support documents needed. So again, like you said, knowledge base is key. Tailored, I would say, is the second added bonus to that.
Yeah, and sometimes I think people also forget to layer in some of the brand material that's so important, right?
Yes,
Brand personality, brand tone, brand
yes,
voice, all of those
yes.
things. They're so focused on the documentation, the procedures, all of that they forget to layer some of that in, and I think that's really important as well.
That's a great callback, Parnell. Yeah, when you're in the food group, the consistency is always the food. So service can sometimes give a bit, right? Let's be honest. People, consumers won't put up with that. But when your variable is the experience, and then the overall, like, what you're selling is not a tangible, it's overall feeling. And they may have a great time the hour there for the experience, but your front staff leaves a little bit to be desired.
Yeah,
That devalued the overall
yeah, yeah.
impact you had.
You talked earlier about Google Analytics and the front end of the experience. What about post purchase and the analytics in that space? How are you seeing that evolve now, particularly inside of Roller, in terms of better understanding the customers' spend levels, return rates? Call it lifetime value, some of the old
Yeah.
acronyms or some of the old KPIs, if you will. How are you seeing that on your side?
Honestly, this industry is very critical on all of those key metrics. Because again, their numbers are all on volume. It's family entertainment centers, so they
Yeah.
need families to come in troves, right? They need the parent, the kids, and the neighbors to come in. So it's critical. We need to see how many clients are coming in, what our conversion rates are. What I've seen business owners, and I'm really proud to say is, I just came from an on-site visit to an owner operator in Louisiana. Um, and I had some time to spend with him and ask him, okay, I understand, corporate team is telling you, hey, here are the monthly KPIs you need to run for me. And then that's fine. I love that sort of guidance. But that being said, you as the owner operator here, what are the boards that you run? And I was amazed to hear that he also tracked, how many conversions, and he had a goal for his front staff on conversions, and he also maintained retention, and he was trying to find tailor the win back campaign. Was it at 50 days? Was it at 60 days? Was it at 70 days? What time frame is he having the highest recovery percentage? And I was really impressed. And what it led me to understand is, as we continue to grow and group, individuals like you, Parnell, who years ago were harping on data. I want to say there are a group of owners that have heard that loud and clear, and now are realizing that it doesn't matter simply on the volume of sales, and critical mass of active clients, but the fine details. Where are these clients coming from? What's the zip code? How far are they driving?
Yeah.
Speaking with him, we identified that he had a very cherry on top spot of 10-mile radius around his business. And so I
Mm.
challenged him. I said, we've now kind of tailored this 10-mile radius. Have you tried 12 miles? He's like, I haven't gone outside that 10-mile radius. And I said, well, for the price point that you're delivering the experience, I would challenge you and see if we can push that 10 to 12, 15 miles. And so these simple changes that we could make to his Google tag words, really to his drip campaigns, all is based on data.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting too, even just on that front. You talk 10-mile radius. I wonder if it's more related to drive time.
Right.
And that obviously is not going to be a nice perfect circle around them, but
No,
something to think about on that front too.
that's a great call.
Shifting gears a little bit, Microsoft announced the other day that about a billion users in terms of Microsoft Office or OneSuite or whatever they call it at the moment. They're going to try and migrate away from passwords, and they want to move people more towards pass keys, which is really, going forward, security and cybersecurity. What are you seeing in that space on your side in terms of improvements that are being made on the security side?
I think they're always constant. I think it's a very dynamic area of the software where if you fail to keep up to date, you leave your client base vulnerable, right? And so I think you have to stay very much at pulse. One of the critical things of managing, children's data and really any client data, and merchant processing is you always want to have that robust security in the back end. It then makes it much more comfortable for your front end staff to ask, Parnell, for your credit card, if you're in person and you need to double check, or when you're inputting it online through our online checkout, right? So, yeah, I think security, as we continue to grow, is going to be one of the key value differentiators for software providers. A lot of times, owner operators are like, "Hey, how can you help me bring in clients? How, can you help me convert? What kind of reportings do you have?" I do see a world where some of these added questions are: What are your security infrastructure like? How do you
Yeah.
keep do you tokenize our credit cards? How secure are those tokenized credit cards? How do you deal with chargebacks? That's
Even
something
just
that
user monitoring, right? I
user
mean,
monitoring.
I ran into a circumstance the other day where somebody had access to 200 plus sets of clients, 200 coaches' clients, and they hadn't been with the company for a year, but their account was still active. So just simple things, right? It's not always about the technology. It also sometimes is about some simple processes and protocols that need to be followed. But
Yes.
um, and I read another article the other day was fascinating. It said that with the power of AI and the supercomputing or power we see now, that the technology we use now to secure credit cards, RSA technology, some of the other ones that have been widely adopted and used throughout, will be completely outdated in less than 5 years. Right? That's scary. So organizations are going to have to start to think about that in terms of what that next level of security is. Probably blockchain, but people are going to have to start to think about what is my process, what is my roadmap to update that security protocol going forward. So credit cards, personalized information, PII, all that data is going to be secure.
I agree. And that's another great point that you call out. I think what's critical, is also, again, harping down on education. Best practices for front of staff. How do they operate around PCI information, right? Like,
Yeah.
are you writing down your client's phone number and address on a piece of paper? You shouldn't, right? Are you, for whatever reason, telling someone over the phone they're having a hard time doing the online checkout and you want to take the credit card over the phone? Maybe not best practice, right? So it's better to maybe walk them through the online checkout. So I agree, Arnell. Not
Yeah.
only does it take a step of what else are we going to do to make our logins more robust, but what guidance are we providing to our owner operators as well to make sure that we don't have a data breach from one of our locations of someone simply taking some credit cards and running off with them. So yeah, that brings a great point. There's a couple venues we need to kind of button up there for security.
All right. So just being conscious of time, we'll do a
Yes,
couple little fun rapid fire kind of questions.
perfect.
Best business book you've read recently?
The best business book that I've recently read is The E-Myth Revisited
Oh
by
yeah.
Michael Gerber.
Yeah.
I really just wanted to revisit that book. Honestly, why? If anybody's interested in franchising, but one of the things I think it delivers is how to scale. Um, Again, as I mentioned before, you never see the full potential of the growth until you're there, and then you're like, "Oops, we have something in our hands." And so, scale, scale, scale. It really, I think, Gerber breaks down the difference of like, the businesses versus a mindset of what's essential. A lot of times, I believe you can have too much tech stack. Uh,
You can. Absolutely.
Consolidation, consolidation, consolidation. So, whether you're like building out the operations or just looking at the processes, I think if you look at a model that can be replicated with consistency, like that's the other thing too, right? Like, do you need a team of 100 people training a new venue every time it's open? Not going to work. so, so let's make sure that that's really scale. That's what I love about that book. I'd really highly recommend it.
Yeah. If you weren't in SaaS, what would you be doing?
Ooh, I'd probably be in the automotive industry, truthfully. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hate to say it, but I think it's moving into the SaaS world itself with subscription services for like heated
Yeah,
seats. So
I saw that. I'm kind of like, really? We're gonna do that?
so
Wow.
there's some overlap now, Parnell. So there's potential.
Yeah. Even just simple things like remote start now as a subscription. I'm like, seriously, come on. If one technology tool you can't live without.
Oh, my smartwatch.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me to stand up. It tracks my workouts now that I'm doing a health journey here at life as I get a little bit older. Parnell, I'll be very transparent with you. And then one of the things that I like about it is I think, which is something I wish I should have mentioned earlier, but it's friendly competition within your franchise group, right? Like I tell my friends that we work out, and it lets me know when they finish a workout, and I
Oh,
don't like to be in last place. And so I
nice.
think some competitive like visualization, either some sort of leaderboard or something. Nobody wants to be last place, Parnell.
Yeah, yeah.
So
When I'm on my Peloton, now I've done enough of the workouts so that I've got my history on there. So now I can compete against myself.
right,
So it's not just the people that are on the board or in the workout at the same time. Now I'm looking at, well,
it's
where
you,
was I 6 months ago? How was my
right?
performance 6 months ago? And I find that to me personally is a little more motivating, right? So
Well, yeah,
yeah,
and again, you're competing with someone, even if it's yourself,
oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no one wants to lose. I love
yeah.
that.
Favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Oh, that's easy. I live quite literally 3 minutes away from a park that has a mile and a half loop. I throw a good audiobook on, and I go for a 45-minute walk.
Nice.
I attempt to do that. I'll be really honest with you. I can do one a day. Ideally, I'd like to do two, but sometimes time is limited. But yeah, that
Yeah,
that is my one way to wind down. It's guaranteed.
walking, great cardio, easier on the knees too. Yeah,
Yes, love it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Shout out to OnCloud. Got some new shoes, and you know they've really helped out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Last question: if you could have lunch with any entrepreneur or business leader, who would it be?
It's someone that I looked up to like a lot during high school. Is Fred DeLuca.
Mm,
Who started Subway at age 17, I think. Why? I read a lot about him and how it started. It was kind of interesting to see, low cost startup mentality, it was something that's scalable and repeatable, super simple. When you look at it, it's like, man, they're just building sandwiches.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way the rapid growth of franchising, it's something to me that always just, you look at a success story and you're like, wow, those are one for the stories, I tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Where would you go for lunch? Would you go to a Subway or would you go somewhere else? It was rhetorical.
No, I like that.
Hugo, man, thanks for spending some time with us this morning. If folks want to get in touch with you, contact information, best way to reach you.
Yeah, feel free to email me. That'd be hugo.moreno. That's hugo.moreno at rollerdigital, or one word.com.
Cool. Yeah, thanks again for spending some time with us this morning. Appreciate it.
It was an honor, Parnell. I wish you the best, and hi to everyone.
Cool. Hey, everybody. Parnell Woodard, another episode of Frantech. We'll see you guys next time.